dark side of the 60s loomed as some of rock's greatest heroes succumbed to the perils of drugs and fame.
I'll give you nearly everything I ever had to give. I tried to do it.
This whole success thing, it hasn't yet really compromised the position that I took a long time ago in Texas. That was to be true to myself, to be the person that was on the inside of me.
Janis was the money magnet. And I know because I spoke to her. I knew the pressures that she was under to be a saleable commodity. And part of that commodity was what killed her, because it had to be this tougher, boozy, two-fisted broad who always went home alone. And she was a lonely girl.
She had a problem of getting off stage and unplugging from the business. So she began using downers and alcohol to deal with her loneliness, and that she was without the community and without her friends and with strangers, essentially.
Deep, deep to my side. And each time I tell myself that I think I've had enough, babe. But I'm gonna show you, darling.
Passing around this Dutch counterport to Southern Comfort, everybody held the last swallow and simultaneously spat into the fire. And there was this blast of light, and I heard this cackle coming through the smoke flaps, and I think that was Janis saying goodbye.
You know you got it. If it makes you feel good right now.
It's a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy. He was a brilliant poet, and John and Robbie and I loved him like he was our brother. All four of us were brothers. We were conquering the universe together. You know, we were bringing a message of love and strangeness to the universe, and he's gone, and it's a real tragedy for me and real sadness.
That's why a lot of people died, because a whole lot of us, having been so disappointed in what life turned out supposedly to be, just turned our backs on it and went looking at the other agenda, the ones that we weren't, the unapproved agendas. Some killed people, as in any explorations, or we had nothing to explore but ourselves.
You know you got it.
With the mass acceptance comes tremendous fear of subversion, either from the outside or from the inside. And virtually all rock musicians came from the outside of society in some fashion. All of a sudden, you're the big insider.
If you have a talent, or if people are noticing you enough, then you should really try to do as much as you possibly can with it, you know. Like what we're going to do now is chop down the words now and try to make it really tight. And what we're saying is not protesting, but giving the answers or some kind of solution.
Jimmy was quite an interesting man, completely different than his public image. He was supposed to be this wild man, and when in fact he was very gentle, very introspective, very bright man. One of the greatest musicians I'll ever have the pleasure of knowing.
Gig together was the Isle of Wight, right before he died, which I had a big conversation with him there too about the problems he was having in business then. And I was saying, don't worry about it, it's no big deal. We'll get together, we'll talk about it, I'll be in London. And he never showed up.
Well, Jimmy was a great guitar player. I thought he was the best, or the most original. I thought he had a really original act, you know, and that's all, man. I don't know nothing about his business, whether he was a casualty, and I wish he was still here.
Well, I said thank you very much for good night. I want to say peace, and happiness.
How well would Hendrix be playing by now? What would Janis be singing like by now? We're talking major stuff here. Genius that got dropped on the floor and ground into the dirt.
my life. Look at my generation. How did that work? Jimi Hendrix, Brian Jones, Janis Joplin, Keith Moon. The list is endless. They're dead people. My life is full of dead people. My friends are dead. My friends. They might be your icons. They're my friends. They're dead.
Janis and Jimmy didn't have a family. They didn't have nothing to go home to. A family, a group that could really tell them what, you know, what's really going on. Here's what you really look like, man. Not what you think you look like.
If you look at the Dead and the band as two examples, they're still together and we're not, because they ended up keeping their own council and ended up keeping their family together.
For the last 3 years, I think, the Grateful Dead have been the largest grossing live act in the world. It's amazing.
It's more fulfilling to be a person than a personality. Most personalities that I've seen, limousines and suites, you know, that stuff cannot hug you.
We were right about civil rights. We were right in that love is better than hate. We were right in that peace is better than war. It turns out, weren't right about drugs.
Free sexuality was an interesting experiment. It failed.
But when I think about the 60s, I think of the anti-war movement, the civil rights movement, the women's movement.
Well, I call it the under-the-counter culture, and the thing is that we're coming out from under the counter. And there's a buzz going on these days called new volunteerism, where people are feeling they get to the bottom of their second BMW and they find it wanting.
That was the point of rock and roll at the time, to become a new tribe, to bring America into a cleaner, purer realm of existence.
You were raising your flag and you were screaming aloud and together. We thought there were millions. There were only hundreds or maybe thousands of us. But you can't stop a good idea or a feeling, and that's what we had.
It was really a moment. There was like a breath there for a moment that was like an open door. You know, it's like, ooh, look. You know, and then bam, it slammed shut again immediately.
For like 2 weeks in the middle of 1967 summer, it was perfect.
Just let me hear some of that rock and roll.